The crosshair danced. Not from breathing, Maya had mastered that, but from heat rising off sand like invisible flames. Through her scope, the figure at 800 meters shimmered, split into three copies, collapsed back into one. "Hold," Frank whispered. Maya's finger rested on the trigger. She exhaled, squeezed. The Barrett's recoil slammed her shoulder. Downrange, the figure dissolved like smoke. "That wasn't a person," Frank said. "You just wasted a round on a shadow." Maya blinked sweat from her eyes. She reached for her camelback, then froze. The hose hung limp. Water darkened the sand below her shoulder. A jagged hole punched through the bladder. "Frank!" "I see it, and so do they." The first mortar whistled overhead. The Chinook's ramp dropped at dawn, and the heat hit Maya like a physical blow. She'd done tours in Iraq, Afghanistan, the Horn of Africa, but this was different. This was heat with intent, heat that pressed against your chest like a hand and squeezed. 30 seconds, the crew chief shouted over the rotor wash, his voice barely audible above the twin turbines. Master Sergeant Frank Miller moved down the ramp first, his silhouette backlit by the pale orange sun crawling up from the eastern horizon. At 58, he moved with the economy of a man who'd learned to conserve energy in places that killed you for wasting it. Every step was deliberate. Every movement had purpose. Sergeant Maya Sterling followed 3 paces behind, her 60-pound ruck settling onto her shoulders with familiar pressure. The weight distribution was perfect. She'd packed and repacked it 4 times before wheels up. The Chinook lifted before they'd cleared 20 meters. Standard procedure. Nobody wanted to linger in a hostile LZ, especially not with a bird that size. The rotor wash kicked up a wall of dust and grit that stung Maya's eyes even through her ballistic sunglasses. She tasted sand immediately, fine particles that worked their way past her shamang and into her mouth. "Welcome to Hell's front porch," Frank said, scanning the horizon through his rifle optic. His SR-25 was up and ready, finger indexed along the receiver. 3 clicks north. We move now while it's still under 100. Maya checked her handheld GPS. The old fort registered as a brown square on the digital map, a relic from some forgotten colonial occupation, now just broken stone in an ocean of sand and rock. According to the brief, it had been built by the French sometime in the 1920s, abandoned in the 60s, and used by everyone from smugglers to insurgents ever since. Their home for the next 72 hours. They moved in traveling overwatch, maintaining 50 meters between them. Frank took point, Maya followed, each covering the other's blind spots in a rhythm they'd perfected over 18 months of partnership. The terrain was lunar, flat hardpan broken by jutting rock formations that looked like they'd been dropped from orbit. No vegetation, no water, nothing but stone and sand the color of old bone. The ground radiated heat even at this early hour. Maya could feel it through the soles of her boots. By noon, she knew, the surface temperature would hit 140 degrees or higher, hot enough to cook an egg, hot enough to blister exposed skin in minutes. By the time they'd covered 1 click, Maya's uniform was soaked through. The multicam pattern had dark patches under her arms, down her spine, across her chest. Sweat ran into her eyes despite the headband. The sun climbed higher, and with it came the shimmer, that rippling distortion that turned the horizon into a liquid mirage, made solid objects dance and waver like reflections in disturbed water. "Conserve your water," Frank said during their first halt. He'd taken a knee behind a boulder, scanning their back trail through his optic. "What you've got is what you've got. Command won't risk a resupply bird for a 2-man OP." Maya nodded, allowing herself 2 small sips from her camelback. The water was already body temperature, tasting of plastic and iodine tablets. She'd trained for this at Fort Irwin, spent 2 weeks in the Mojave learning hydration discipline. The instructors had drilled it into them. Small sips, regular intervals, never chug. She could go 48 hours on 3 liters if she had to. The human body was adaptable. It would complain, but it would function. She didn't know yet that she wouldn't have that long. They continued north. The sun turned vicious. Maya felt the heat beating down on her helmet, radiating up from the ground, pressing in from all sides. It was like being inside an oven. She focused on her breathing, steady, measured, through her nose. Mouth breathing would dry her out faster. The structure appeared after the second click, a low fortress of mud, brick, and stone, half buried by decades of sandstorms. It sat on a slight rise, maybe 20 feet above the surrounding terrain. Defensive position, Maya thought automatically. Whoever built it knew what they were doing. A single tower rose from the southeast corner, its top open to the sky like a broken tooth. The walls were pockmarked with bullet holes, some old, some that could have been fresh. Hard to tell. Everything aged fast out here. "Hold here," Frank said. He'd gone prone behind a low ridge, his rifle up. He glassed the structure for 5 full minutes, methodical, sector by sector. Maya did the same from a position 15 meters to his right, scanning through her own optic. No movement. No heat signatures through her thermal monocular. No glint of optics or metal. But that didn't mean empty. It just meant whoever was there knew how to hide. "Clear," Frank finally said. "But that doesn't mean we get careless. Stay sharp." They approached from the west, using a shallow wadi for concealment. The depression was barely 3 feet deep, but it kept them below the skyline. Frank moved first, Maya covered. Then she moved while he covered. Bounding Overwatch, textbook, the way they'd done it 100 times before. The fort's walls were 3 feet thick at the base, tapering to maybe 18 inches at the top. The main gate had rotted away decades ago, leaving just the stone archway and rusted iron hinges. Frank paused at the entrance, pulled a small mirror on an extendable rod from his kit, and used it to check the corners. Old school, but effective. Technology failed, mirrors didn't. "Clear," he whispered. Inside the courtyard was a bowl of trapped heat. Maya felt like she'd stepped into an oven set to broil. The walls radiated stored thermal energy from yesterday's sun, and today's heat was already building. The air shimmered and wavered, making it hard to focus. She blinked sweat from her eyes and followed Frank toward the tower. They climbed the interior stairs, more like a crumbling ramp of stone with irregular steps. Some were missing entirely. Maya tested each one before putting her full weight on it. The last thing they needed was a broken ankle 20 clicks from the nearest friendly unit. The view from the top opened up in all directions. To the north, a dirt track cut through the wasteland like a scar. That was their target. The supply route Intel said moved weapons and fighters after dark. To the south, the way they'd come, nothing but empty desert. East and west, the same. They were alone out here, completely, utterly alone. "Good sight lines," Maya said, setting down her ruck with a grunt of relief. The straps had cut grooves into her shoulders despite the padding. 800 meters to the road, clean shots. Frank nodded. He was already pulling out a thermal blanket, the kind designed to mask heat signatures from aerial IR. "We set up here. Shooting position northeast corner. You take first watch. 4 hours on, 4 off." They worked in silence, establishing their hide site. Maya set up her Barrett M82A1, checking the barrel for sand, confirming her Zero hadn't drifted during transport. The rifle weighed 30 pounds loaded, but she handled it like an extension of her own body. She'd named it Mercy, because one shot from this gun was the last mercy most targets ever received. Frank rigged the thermal blanket as overhead cover, blocking the worst of the sun while leaving narrow firing ports. He used paracord and broken masonry to create a framework, then carefully arranged the blanket to avoid any hard edges that might create a recognizable shape from above. The material was silver on one side, olive drab on the other. Silver faced up to reflect heat, drab face down for camouflage. They set out their essential gear within arm's reach. Spare magazines, radio, medical kit, energy bars, and water. Always water. Maya had 3 liters in her camelback, plus 2 one-liter bottles in her ruck. Frank had the same, 6 liters each, enough for 72 hours if they were disciplined. By the time they finished, it was noon. The temperature gauge on Maya's watch read 118 degrees Fahrenheit. She felt lightheaded for a moment, took a careful sip of water, waited for the sensation to pass. Heat exhaustion started subtle. You had to catch it early. Get some rest, Frank said. He'd settled into his own position, back against the wall in the only patch of shade. Nothing moves out here until dark anyway. They're not stupid enough to travel in this. Maya tried. She lay down on her sleeping pad, felt sweat pool in the small of her back, tasted salt on her lips. But sleep didn't come. Her mind wouldn't shut off. She kept running through the mission brief. Observe and report. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. Extraction in 72 hours at grid coordinates she'd memorized and then burned. Simple, clean, low risk. But out here, she'd learned, nothing stayed simple for long. 4 hours later, Maya took her position behind the Barrett. The world through the scope was a shimmering soup. Heat mirage turned straight lines into serpents, made distances impossible to judge accurately. She'd trained for this, adjusting her holdovers for thermal distortion, learning to shoot through the waves, but training never quite prepared you for the real thing. The mirage was worst in the middle distance, between 400 and 800 meters. Closer than that, you could see through it. Farther, you were above it. But in that sweet spot where most of her targets would be, the air boiled and danced. See anything? Frank asked. His voice was hoarse, rougher than usual. The heat was getting to him too. Mirages, that's about it. They'll come, Frank said. Intel's solid. This route's been hot for 3 weeks. Weapons shipments every few days. They're getting bolder. Maya scanned the road, the rocks, the few scattered boulders that could conceal a vehicle. Her eyes began to ache from the glare despite her tinted lens. The landscape was monochromatic, 50 shades of tan and brown, with harsh black shadows that offered no detail. She lowered the optic, blinked hard, pressed the camelback's bite valve to her lips. The water tasted like salvation, like life itself. How much you got left? Frank asked. Maya checked the bladder by feel. It was softer than it should be. Maybe 2 liters. You? Same. We're good for 48 if we're smart. The sun crawled across the sky with agonizing slowness. Maya's watch showed 1400 hours, then 1430, then 1500. The heat peaked somewhere around 1530, hitting 124 degrees according to her thermometer. She'd stopped sweating as much. Her body was conserving water, shutting down non-essential systems. Dangerous sign. She forced herself to take another sip. At 1600 hours, Frank took over the watch. Maya retreated to the shade, drank some water, ate half an energy bar even though she wasn't hungry. Calories mattered. She couldn't afford to bonk out here. At 1700 hours, Frank's voice cut through her half-sleep. Contact. Maya was up instantly, adrenaline washing away the fatigue. Where? North Road, grid 3-7-4. 2 vehicles, moving slow. She pressed her eye to her own optic. Through the shimmer, she could make out 2 Toyota pickups, maybe 3 clicks out. Technical vehicles, gun mounts visible in the beds. 5 or 6 men visible, maybe more hidden. Could be locals, Frank said, but his tone suggested he didn't believe it. With PKMs mounted? Not likely. They watched in silence. The vehicles slowed, stopped right at the spot where the road crossed their primary line of sight. Men dismounted, began scanning the horizon with binoculars. Professional movements, tactical spacing. They're looking for something, Maya whispered, or someone. One of the men pointed, directly at the fort. Maya felt her heart rate kick up a notch, forced herself to breathe slowly. Through her scope, she could see the man's mouth moving. Talking on a radio, maybe. Shit, Frank breathed. Did they spot us? Don't know. Could be routine. This fort's probably on their patrol route. But Maya didn't believe that any more than Frank did. Something about the way they were moving, the way they were looking, they knew. Or suspected. Either way, bad news. Did they make us? Maya asked, keeping her voice level despite the spike of adrenaline. Maybe, maybe not. Frank's jaw was tight, tendons standing out. Could be they know Americans are in the area, just don't know where. This fort's an obvious spot to check. Maya kept her crosshair steady on the lead vehicle. The man in the truck bed had swung the PKM toward the fort, not aiming, just pointing it in that general direction. Testing, probing. Rules of engagement? She asked. We're observers. We don't engage unless engaged first. Frank paused. But keep your finger close. If they start climbing toward us, we drop the first two and call for extract. Extract's 12 hours out minimum. I know. The men below talked among themselves. Maya could see their body language through the scope. Animated gestures, pointing, discussion. After what felt like an eternity but was probably only 5 minutes, they remounted their vehicles and continued west along the road. Stand down, Frank said. Maya exhaled slowly. She hadn't realized she'd been holding her breath. Her heart was hammering against her ribs. That was close. Too close. They're suspicious. Means they'll be back with more eyes. Frank lowered his rifle, rubbed his face with both hands. We need to figure out what tipped them. What do you mean? They were looking right at us, not near us. At us. He pointed at Maya's Barrett. Your scope, the objective lens. Even with the kill flash, if the angle's right and the sun catches it, that glass can flash like a signal mirror. Maya looked at her rifle. The lens hood was in place, the honeycomb anti-reflective device properly installed. But Frank was right. Nothing was perfect. One wrong angle, 1 second of carelessness, one shift in the sun's position, and a scope could flash visible for miles. Fuck, she said quietly. Yeah. Frank pulled out his range card, started sketching. We need to reposition. Different angle. Less exposure to the south. We'll shift to the west corner. Shadow will be better in 2 hours anyway. They spent the next 30 minutes carefully moving their gear. Every item had to be transported individually, staying low, staying quiet. Maya's back screamed from the awkward crouch walk. Her knees popped with each step. But she didn't complain. Complaints didn't change anything. By the time they'd reestablished their position, the sun was beginning its descent. The temperature dropped from unbearable to merely brutal, down to 110, then 105. Maya allowed herself another sip of water. She checked the bladder. 1.5 liters left. 36 hours of water if she was careful. The math was simple and unforgiving. Darkness came fast in the desert. One moment the horizon glowed orange and purple like a bruise. The next it was black velvet, studded with more stars than Maya had ever seen. Without light pollution, the Milky Way stretched overhead like a river of diamonds. Beautiful, and utterly indifferent to whether she lived or died. The temperature plunged. Within an hour of sunset, it dropped 30 degrees. Maya pulled on her lightweight jacket, felt goosebumps rise on her arms. Amazing how cold the desert could get when the sun disappeared. All that heat radiating back into space with nothing to hold it in. Your watch, Frank said. I'm getting 4 hours. Wake me at 0200, or sooner if anything moves. Roger. Maya settled behind the Barrett, switching to her PVS-14 night vision monocular. The desert turned green and grainy, shadows becoming absolute blacks, highlights burning bright. She scanned methodically, road, rocks, ridgeline, back to road, sector by sector, looking for movement, heat signatures, anything that didn't belong. Nothing moved. An hour passed. The temperature continued to drop. Maya's breath plumed in the cold air. Her hands were stiff on the rifle despite her gloves. She kept them moving, flexing her fingers, maintaining circulation. Another hour. The cold was seeping into her bones now, that deep cold that made your joints ache. She allowed herself another sip of water. 1.3 liters left. She tried not to think about it. At 0200 hours, she saw lights. Frank! She kept her voice low and calm, professional. We've got vehicles inbound, multiple, North Road. Frank was up instantly, no grogginess, no hesitation, pure muscle memory. He'd been waking up to contact for 30 years. He pressed his eye to his SR-25 scope. Count them. Maya watched through her NVG. 7 vehicles. Spacing suggests tactical convoy. They're moving slow, lights off except the lead vehicle. Smart, using one set of headlights to navigate, keeping the rest dark. Harder to count them from a distance. Frank's voice was grim. These aren't smugglers. That's a military movement. Through the night vision, Maya watched the convoy approach the same position where the scouts had stopped earlier. The vehicles halted. Men dismounted. She counted at least 20, maybe more. They spread out in a tactical formation that spoke of training, discipline, experience. These aren't local militia, Maya whispered. No, they're not. Frank adjusted his focus. See the one in the back? Tall guy, standing apart? That's a commander. He's directing the others. Maya shifted her crosshair to the man Frank indicated. Through her scope, even in the green haze of night vision, she could see the difference. The way the other men oriented to him. The way he moved, confident, in control. What do you think they're doing? Hunting, Frank's jaw was set. They're looking for us specifically. Somebody told them there's an American OP in this sector. We're burned? Looks like it. The men below began moving toward the fort. Not rushing, but advancing with purpose. Bounding overwatch. Combat spacing. Every 50 meters they'd halt, take a knee, scan, then move again. Professional, disciplined, deadly. We can't fight 20, Maya said. It wasn't fear in her voice, just tactical assessment. Not from a fixed position, not for long. No, but we can make them pay for it. Frank reached for his radio. I'm calling it in. We need QRF inbound. He keyed the handset. Static. He adjusted the frequency. Tried again. More static. Frank? Radio's dead. Or jammed. Either way, we're on our own. Maya felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. No comms meant no support. No support meant no extraction. No extraction meant they had to break contact and evade on foot. 20 clicks through hostile territory in daylight heat with limited water. The math was getting worse by the minute. So what's the play? She asked. Frank watched the men approaching. 300 meters now. We hit them hard when they reach 200. Drop as many as we can. Then we displace to the lower level. There's a room on the west wall. One door, one window, thick walls. Defensible. We'll be trapped. We're already trapped. At least down there they can't surround us completely. The men kept coming. Maya settled into her shooting position. Cheek weld perfect, breathing controlled. Her finger moved from the trigger guard to the trigger, taking up the slack. 200 meters. 190. 180. Hold, Frank whispered. Wait for my shot. 170. 160. Maya could see individual faces now through her scope, even in the darkness. Young men, most of them. Somebody's son, somebody's brother. She pushed the thought away. Sentiment got you killed. At 150 meters, Frank fired. The suppressed crack of his SR-25 was followed instantly by a man dropping. Maya squeezed her trigger a heartbeat later. The Barrett's unsuppressed roar shattered the night like thunder. Her target went down in a spray of dust. Chaos erupted below. Men scattered, shouting, returning fire blind into the darkness. Muzzle flashes lit up the desert floor like fireflies. Bullets cracked overhead, impacted the tower walls with puffs of ancient dust. Frank fired again and again. Controlled pairs. Each shot a statement. We're here. We're deadly. We're not going down easy. Maya worked the Barrett's bolt, ejecting a brass casing the size of her thumb. She acquired another target, fired, reload, fire. The rifle's recoil was brutal against her shoulder, but she barely noticed. Training took over. Breathe, aim, fire. Breathe, aim, fire. 5 down, Frank said. Moving, follow me. They grabbed their essential gear, rifles, ammo, water. Everything else stayed. Speed mattered more than comfort now. Maya slung the Barrett across her back, felt the weight pull at her shoulders, and followed Frank down the crumbling stairs. Behind them, the tower exploded. The shock wave was a physical blow. Maya felt herself lifted, thrown forward like a rag doll. She hit the courtyard dirt hard enough to drive the air from her lungs. Her helmet cracked against stone. Stars burst behind her eyes. Ears ringing, dust choking her throat. Frank was shouting something. She couldn't hear him through the ringing. She rolled to her side, coughing, trying to breathe through the dust cloud that had enveloped everything. A second explosion. Closer. The fort's wall shook. Chunks of brick and stone rained down. Something hot sliced across Maya's calf. Shrapnel or debris, she couldn't tell. Bright pain, but not crippling. She could still move. Mortar! Frank was pulling her to her feet, his mouth moving, words barely audible. Move, now! They scrambled toward the west wall as a third round hit where they'd been standing 2 seconds earlier. Maya's legs pumped, her lungs burned. The Barrett banged against her back with every step. 20 meters, 15, 10. Frank kicked open a wooden door. It splintered under his boot. The room beyond was small, maybe 10 by 12 feet. A single window faced west. One doorway in, that was it. Barricade! Frank shoved a heavy wooden table toward the door. Maya dropped the Barrett, grabbed the other end of the table. They wrestled it into position. Then Frank was moving again, gathering everything in the room. Broken furniture, stones, an old barrel half filled with sand. They piled it all against the door. It wouldn't stop bullets, maybe wouldn't even stop bodies, but it would slow them down. Outside, the shouting grew louder. Commands in Arabic, the sound of boots on stone. The men were advancing, emboldened by their mortar support. Frank took position at the window, rifle up. Maya covered the doorway. Her Barrett was useless in these close quarters. She dropped it and drew her M4 carbine, checking the magazine by feel. 30 rounds, 4 spare mags, 150 total. Not enough, never enough. How many? She asked. Enough. Frank's face was grim in the darkness. The only light came from the stars through the window and the flickering orange glow of something burning in the courtyard. Listen to me. If they breach this room, you go through that window. Don't argue, don't wait. You run west, keep low, find an exfil position. Command will send a bird when they realize we're off comms. I'm not leaving you. That's an order, Sergeant. Before Maya could respond, gunfire erupted. Rounds punched through the wooden door, splintering the barricade. Holes appeared in the wood, spitting splinters. Frank returned fire through the window, controlled pairs, aiming at muzzle flashes and silhouettes. Maya fired through the doorway, not at specific targets yet, but at movement, at shadows. The room filled with cordite smoke. Her ears, already ringing from the explosions, screamed from the concussion in this enclosed space. More shooting. The barricade was disintegrating. Another few seconds and they'd push through. Then Maya heard it. A sound that made her blood freeze. A metallic clink against stone. Hollow. Rolling. Grenade! Frank dove away from the window. Maya threw herself flat behind the overturned table. The explosion was a physical fist that slammed into her chest, compressed her lungs, drove the air from her body. The room filled with smoke and dust and the smell of cordite. She couldn't see, couldn't breathe. Her ears were beyond ringing now, just a high-pitched whine that swallowed all other sound. Something wet on her face. She touched it. Blood. Her own or Frank's? She couldn't tell. Maya! Frank's voice, distant, muffled. He was coughing. I'm good. She wasn't sure if that was true. Her head felt disconnected from her body, but she could move her limbs. That was something. More shooting outside, more shouting. They were massing for another push. Maya forced herself to her knees, grabbed her M4, checked the chamber. Still functional. Good. Frank was back at the window, firing, dropping back, firing again. In the brief illumination from his muzzle flashes, Maya saw him clearly and saw the dark stain spreading down his left leg. You're hit. Shrapnel. I'm fine. But his voice was tight with pain, each word clipped short. Maya crawled to him. Let me see it. No time. Frank, let me see it. He didn't fight her this time. Maya pulled out her red lens flashlight, shielded it with her hand, flicked it on for just a second, long enough. The jagged tear in Frank's calf looked like something had taken a bite out of it. Blood soaked through his cargo pocket, ran down into his boot. She could see the shrapnel still embedded, a twisted piece of metal the size of her thumb. Not arterial bleeding, thank God, but bad enough. Jesus, Frank! I said I'm fine. He pushed her hand away. Watch that door. Maya turned back to her position. The shooting outside had stopped. An ominous silence fell, broken only by the crackle of flames and the ringing in her ears. Then a voice called out in accented but clear English. American soldiers, you are surrounded. Come out with your hands raised and you will be treated as prisoners of war under the Geneva Convention. Frank snorted. Yeah, right, because these guys look like they read the Geneva Convention. Come out now or we will burn you out. You have 60 seconds to decide. Maya looked at Frank. He looked back. In the dim starlight, his eyes were steady, calm. The eyes of a man who'd been in worse situations and survived. Or maybe just a man who'd accepted what was coming. We don't have enough ammo for another sustained firefight, he said quietly. And I can't run on this leg, not fast enough. So what do we do? Frank checked his rifle, counted his remaining magazines by feel in the darkness. 4 left, maybe 120 rounds. Maya had 5, 150. Total, 270 rounds between them against 20 men. The math was not in their favor. We make them pay for every inch, Frank said finally. Maybe we get lucky. Maybe they lose their nerve. Maybe we hold out until dawn and a surveillance drone spots us. He paused. Or maybe we go down swinging. Either way, we do it on our feet. Maya nodded. She was 27 years old. She joined the army because her father had been Army and his father before him. She'd volunteered for sniper school because she wanted to be the best. And now she was going to die in a forgotten fort in the middle of nowhere, and probably nobody would ever find her body. But she'd die on her feet. That was something. Then she heard a sound that changed everything. A hissing sound, soft, persistent. Her hand went to her back, to her camelback. The bladder felt wrong, too flat, too light, wrong shape entirely. She pulled it around to the front, looked at it in the dim red glow of her flashlight. A hole, punched clean through by a piece of shrapnel, small entry, larger exit. And all around her on the dirt floor, a spreading dark stain that caught the light like a mirror. Water. 3 liters of it, soaking into the thirsty sand. No. The word came out as barely a whisper. No, no, no. What? Frank turned from the window. Maya held up the bladder. Empty. Completely, utterly empty. Every drop of her water, her lifeline, her survival, soaking into dirt that would be dry again in an hour. Frank's face went very still. His eyes moved from the bladder to Maya's face, and she saw something flicker there. Not pity, something harder. Understanding. He knew what this meant. In this heat, In this place, without water, she had maybe 24 hours. Less if they had to move. Even less if she had to fight. Without a word, he unslung his own camelback and pressed it into her hands. Take it. Frank, no. That's not a request, Sergeant. That's an order. His voice was iron. You're 27 years old. You're at peak physical condition. You can survive this. I'm 58 with a piece of metal in my leg. My odds aren't good even with water. We'll share it. We'll do what makes tactical sense. His jaw set in that way that meant argument was useless. You're the primary shooter. You need it more. End of discussion. Before Maya could argue further, the shouting outside intensified. Footsteps on stone, the sound of weapons being charged. The attack was coming. Maya checked her rifle one more time, counted her rounds, calculated her odds. Then she thought about the water, Frank's water, the only water they had left, and recalculated. In the desert, they said, a bullet would kill you in seconds. But thirst would take days, and days in hell was worse than seconds in flames. The first man appeared in the doorway. Maya fired. The man in the doorway died before he fully understood he was dying. Maya's 3-round burst caught him center mass, and he folded like a puppet with cut strings. The men behind him scattered, shouting, dragging the body back into the darkness. Contact left, Frank called. He fired through the window, his SR-25 barking twice. They're flanking! Maya swung her M4 toward the window, added her fire to his. Muzzle flashes lit the room in strobing freeze frames. Brass casings tinkled on stone. The air grew thick with smoke. Then, as suddenly as it started, the shooting stopped. Silence fell. Not peaceful, pregnant with threat. Maya's ears rang in the absence of gunfire. She could hear her own heartbeat, rapid and hard. They're pulling back, Frank said. He ejected his magazine, checked it by feel, slammed it back home. Regrouping. They'll hit us again at first light when they can see what they're shooting at. Maya checked her own ammo. 2 magazines expended, 3 left plus the partial in her rifle. Maybe 90 rounds total. She looked at the barricaded door, the splintered wood, the blood smeared on stone where the dead man had fallen. How long until dawn? She asked. Frank checked his watch. 3 hours, give or take. 3 hours. Then the sun would rise, and with it, the heat. The killing heat. Maya's mouth was already dry, her tongue feeling thick. She reached for Frank's camelback, the only water they had left, and allowed herself the smallest sip, barely enough to wet her mouth. Take more, Frank said. You need it. So do you. I'm not the one who's going to be running when this goes sideways. Maya wanted to argue, but the look on Frank's face stopped her. He knew. They both knew. His leg was getting worse. She could see him favoring it, see the dark stains spreading despite the pressure dressing he'd applied. He wasn't going to be running anywhere. The next 3 hours crawled by like years. Maya and Frank took turns watching the approaches, conserving their strength, sipping water in careful, measured amounts. The night cold seeped into Maya's bones. She shivered despite her jacket, burning calories to stay warm, knowing each calorie burned was moisture lost. At 0500 hours, the eastern horizon began to lighten. From black to deep blue to pale gray, the stars faded. The temperature, which had dropped to maybe 50 degrees, began its inexorable climb. Here they come, Frank said. Maya saw them, shapes moving in the pre-dawn gloom. Not rushing this time, advancing carefully, using cover, setting up a perimeter. Smart, professional. They'd learned from their casualties. They're going to wait us out, Frank said. Let the sun do their work for them. He was right. As the sun rose higher, Maya felt the temperature climb. 60 degrees, 70, 80. By 0700, it was already 90. By 0800, over 100. The room became an oven again. The stone walls, which had provided blessed coolness during the night, now radiated stored heat. Maya felt sweat begin to bead on her forehead, trickle down her spine. Her body was already starting to lose moisture. She allowed herself another sip of water, then another. The camelback felt lighter, dangerous. "How much left?" Frank asked. Maya checked. "Maybe a liter and a half." Frank nodded slowly. He didn't state the obvious. That wasn't enough. Not in this heat. Not for two people. Maybe not even for one. At 900, the temperature hit 110. Maya's head began to ache, a dull throb behind her eyes. Early sign of dehydration. She drank again, trying to stay ahead of it. The water was body temperature now, tasting of plastic and salt from the sweat on her lips. "Talk to me," Frank said. "Stay sharp." "What do you want me to say?" "Anything. Tell me about home, family, anything to keep your mind active." Maya tried to think. Her thoughts felt sluggish, disconnected. "My dad was a sniper," she said finally. "Marine Corps, scout sniper. He's the one who got me into shooting." "He's still around?" "Died, heart attack, 3 years ago." Maya paused. "Never got to tell him I made it through sniper school." "He knew," Frank said. "Fathers always know." They lapsed into silence. Outside, nothing moved. The enemy was being patient, letting nature do their killing for them. Smart tactics. Brutal, but smart. At 1000 hours, Maya's headache got worse. The throbbing spread from behind her eyes to her temples, pulsing in time with her heartbeat. Her mouth felt like it was full of cotton. She took another sip of water, too big this time, desperate. The level in the bladder dropped noticeably. "Easy," Frank said. "Small sips. You know this." Maya nodded. She did know. But knowing and doing were different things when your body was screaming for water. At 1100, the temperature hit 118. Maya's sweat had mostly stopped. Bad sign. Very bad sign. It meant her body was rationing its remaining moisture, prioritizing vital organs over cooling. She felt lightheaded. Her vision sparkled at the edges. "Frank," she said. Her voice came out as a croak. "I don't feel good. Drink more." "We're almost out." "Drink. That's an order." Maya drank. The water helped, but not enough. Her headache was pounding now, each pulse like a hammer blow. Her hands shook slightly when she tried to hold her rifle steady. At noon, the sun reached its zenith. The temperature peaked at 124 degrees. The room was unbearable. Maya's skin felt like it was burning, even though she was in shade. Her lips were cracked and bleeding. When she ran her tongue over them, she tasted copper. She reached for the camelback, nearly empty, maybe half a liter left. "Frank." "I know." His voice was rough, barely above a whisper. His face was flushed, eyes slightly glazed. He was suffering too. "We're not going to make it to nightfall. Not like this." "So what do we do?" Frank was quiet for a long moment. Then, "We break out. While we still have the strength. We push through their line, head west. Maybe we make it to the hills. Maybe we find water. Maybe command sends a bird. A lot of maybes, but it's better than cooking to death in this room." Maya tried to think through the plan. Her brain felt sluggish, wrapped in cotton. "They'll see us, cut us down." "Probably, but we'll take some of them with us." Frank checked his rifle. "Better than dying of thirst." He was right. Maya knew he was right, but the thought of moving, of running in this heat with no water. A sound outside, shouting, then engines. Maya forced herself to the window, peered out carefully. Two of the technical trucks were leaving, heading back the way they'd come. Men were mounting up, pulling out. "They're leaving?" she said, confused. "Not all of them." Frank was at the other window. "Half are staying, rotating shifts. The smart ones are getting out of the sun." Which meant the enemy understood the same calculus Maya and Frank did. Nobody could operate effectively in this heat, so they'd rotate, half keeping watch from shade or vehicles with water, half resting in whatever cool place they'd established. "They'll be back tonight," Frank said. Fresh, rested, hydrated. And Maya and Frank would be weaker, slower, closer to death. The afternoon dragged on. Every minute felt like an hour. Maya's world narrowed to the pounding of her headache, the burning in her throat, the weight of her tongue in her mouth. She drank the last of the water at 1400. The camelback went flat, empty, useless. No more water. In 124-degree heat, 12 hours until dark. The math was simple. She was going to die. At 1500 hours, Maya started seeing things. At first, she thought it was just heat shimmer, the way the air rippled and distorted in the courtyard beyond the window. But then the ripples started to look like figures, movement where there shouldn't be movement. Frank, she said, 3 o'clock, do you see that? Frank looked. See what? The people, moving between the rocks. Frank looked again, longer this time. Maya, there's nothing there. It's just heat distortion. Maya blinked hard. The figures wavered, dissolved, reformed. She could almost make them out. Shapes that looked human, but moved wrong, jerky and disconnected. Right, she said. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears. Thick. Just heat distortion. But she kept seeing them. Shadows that moved. Shapes that flickered at the edge of her vision. She'd turn her head and they'd be gone. But when she looked back, there they were again. Hallucinations. She knew what they were. Dehydration, stage 2 or 3. Her brain wasn't getting enough fluid, wasn't firing right, seeing things that weren't there. Talk to me, Frank said. His voice sounded far away, echoing. Stay with me, Maya. I'm here. Was she? She wasn't sure anymore. Her body felt disconnected from her mind, like she was watching herself from outside. Dissociation, another symptom. Tell me more about your father, Frank said. Tell me about learning to shoot. Maya tried to focus. Words came slowly. He took me to the range. When I was 12, let me shoot his .308. Kicked like a mule. I loved it. What else? He taught me breathing, trigger control, natural point of aim, all the fundamentals. She paused. He said shooting wasn't about the gun. It was about mastering yourself. Smart man. Yeah, he was. But as Maya talked, she kept seeing movement, figures in the courtyard. She counted them, 3, no 4, no 6. They moved in and out of the heat shimmer, carrying rifles, advancing on the room. She raised her M4. Contact. Maya, stop. Frank's hand was on her barrel, pushing it down. There's nothing there. You're hallucinating. Maya blinked. The figures wavered. Were they real? They looked real. She could see their faces, their weapons, They vanished. Fuck, she whispered. It's the dehydration, Frank said. Your brain's not getting enough oxygen. It's filling in gaps with false information. You have to trust me. I'll tell you when they're really coming. Maya nodded. She tried to trust him. But the figures kept appearing, sometimes in the courtyard, sometimes in the room with them. She'd see a man standing in the corner, aiming at her, and she'd spin to engage, and Frank would grab her, tell her it wasn't real. At 1600, she saw something different. Water. A pool of it, right there in the middle of the courtyard. Crystal clear, rippling gently in the breeze. She could almost feel how cool it would be, how good it would taste. Frank, she said. Frank, look, water. Right there, we can… Maya, that's a mirage. It's not real. But I can see it. I know, but it's not there. Trust me. She wanted to trust him. But the water looked so real, so close. Just across the courtyard. She could make it. She could run, fill her camelback, come back. Frank's hand gripped her shoulder, hard. Maya, look at me. Look at me. She tore her eyes away from the mirage. Frank's face swam into focus. He looked bad, flushed, eyes bloodshot, lips cracked and bleeding. but his gaze was steady. "That's not water," he said slowly, clearly. "It's a heat mirage. If you run out there, you'll die. The enemy is still out there. They'll shoot you before you get 10 feet. Do you understand?" Maya nodded slowly. "I understand." But when she looked back at the courtyard, the water was still there, shimmering, inviting. By 1700 hours, Maya wasn't just seeing things. She was hearing them too. Voices, distant at first, then closer. She couldn't make out words, just a murmur of conversation, like people talking in the next room. She turned her head, trying to locate the source. The voices moved with her, always just out of reach. "Frank," she said, "do you hear that?" "Hear what?" "The voices. Someone's talking." Frank listened. "I don't hear anything. Maya, you're—" "I know," she cut him off. "I know I'm hallucinating, but I can hear them, clear as day." The voices grew louder. She started to make out words, English words. Her mother's voice. "Maya, honey, drink some water. You're so thirsty." Her father. "Remember your breathing, sweetheart, slow and steady." Other voices too, friends from sniper school, her first platoon sergeant, people she hadn't thought about in years. "They're not real," she told herself. "They're not real. They're not real. They're—" "Maya," Frank's voice, real, solid. "Stay focused. What's your name?" "What?" "Your name. Tell me your name." "Maya Sterling, Sergeant, U.S. Army." "Good. What's your job?" "Sniper, scout sniper." "Where are you?" She had to think about that one. The answer didn't come immediately. I'm in a fort, in the desert. We're observing?" "No, we're pinned down." "That's right, good. Stay with me." But the voices kept coming. Maya heard her father tell her she'd done well. Heard her mother saying it was time to come home. Heard someone laughing, high and bright, like tinkling bells. She shook her head, trying to clear it. The movement made her dizzy. The room spun. She gripped her rifle to steady herself. "Frank, I don't know how much longer I can—" An explosion outside, real this time. The shock wave rattled the window. Maya snapped back to focus, adrenaline cutting through the fog in her brain. "Mortar," Frank said. He was at the window, scanning. "They're softening us up again." Another explosion, closer. Stone chips flew. Dust rained from the ceiling. "They're coming," Frank said. He checked his rifle, his movements slow, deliberate. "Final push. They want to finish this before dark." Maya tried to focus, tried to push through the dehydration, the hallucinations, the fog. She had to fight, had to stay alive, had to— The voices came back louder now. Her father. "It's okay, sweetheart. You can rest now. You've done enough." "No," she said out loud. "Not yet. Not yet." "Maya?" Frank looked at her, concerned. "I'm fine. I'm here. Tell me when they're coming." But she wasn't fine. She knew she wasn't fine. Her vision was tunneling, darkening at the edges. Her hands shook on her rifle. Every breath felt like work. Still, she held her position. Because that's what you did. You held your position until you couldn't anymore. And she wasn't quite there yet. The attack came at 1800 hours. The sun was beginning its descent, but it was still brutally hot, over 115 degrees. The enemy had waited for the worst of the heat to pass, but not for darkness. Smart. They wanted to see what they were doing, but they knew Maya and Frank were weakened to the point of incapacity. "Here they come," Frank fired through the window. 10, maybe 12. Both sides. Maya swung her M4 toward the door, but her movements felt sluggish, disconnected. She squeezed the trigger. The rifle kicked. Did she hit anything? She couldn't tell. The smoke and dust in her own failing vision made everything blur together. Frank kept firing, methodical, professional, but slower than before. His injured leg had stiffened. and Maya could see him grimacing with each shift in position. Men appeared at the window. Frank engaged them point blank. They fell back. More came. The room filled with noise, gunfire, shouting, explosions. Maya fired until her magazine ran dry, then fumbled for a fresh one. Her hands didn't want to work right. The magazine slipped, fell, clattered on stone. "Maya!" Frank's voice. "Reload!" She bent to pick up the dropped magazine. The room tilted. She fell to one knee, caught herself, grabbed the magazine, slammed it home. Up! Fire! The M4 barked. Someone screamed outside, then silence again. The attack broke off as suddenly as it started. Maya counted her breathing. 1, 2, 3. Still alive, still fighting. "Status?" Frank asked. Maya had to think about it. "I'm okay. 2 mags left." "Same." Frank slumped against the wall, breathing hard. Blood had soaked through his pant leg completely. His face was gray. "They're testing us, seeing how much fight we have left." "Not much," Maya said honestly. "No, not much." The sun continued its descent. The temperature began to drop, but too slowly. Still over 110. Maya's tongue was swollen in her mouth. Her lips had cracked open in multiple places. She could taste blood constantly now. At 1900, she started hearing voices again, her father mostly, talking about home, about cool streams and green grass and rain. She closed her eyes, let herself imagine it. Rain on her face, so cool, so wet, so... "Maya!" Her eyes snapped open. Frank was staring at her. "You fell asleep," he said, "or passed out, I'm not sure which." "How long?" 30 seconds, maybe a minute. Dangerous. If she passed out during an attack, she was dead. They were both dead. "Frank, I don't think I can..." "Yes, you can." His voice was hard. Command voice. "You're going to stay awake. You're going to stay alert. Because in 1 hour, it'll be dark. And in the dark, we have a chance. But only if you stay conscious. Do you understand me?" "Yes, Sergeant." "Good. Now tell me about your first deployment. Talk to me. Keep your mind active." Maya tried. Words came slowly, disconnected. She told him about Iraq, about her first mission, about being scared and trying not to show it. Frank listened, asked questions, kept her talking. The sun touched the horizon, orange and red, beautiful and terrible. The temperature dropped to 105, then 100. Still hot, but survivable. Maybe. At 2000, darkness fell. The temperature plunged. Within an hour, it would be cold. But right now, this moment, it was almost bearable. "We need to move," Frank said. "As soon as it's full dark, this is our window." "Where?" "West, into the hills. Maybe there's a wadi with water. Maybe command sent a bird. I don't know. But we can't stay here." Maya nodded. She tried to stand. Her legs didn't want to hold her. She pushed harder, forced herself upright. The room spun. She gripped the wall until it steadied. "I can make it," she said. A lie, but a necessary one. Frank looked at her. In the fading light, she saw the doubt in his eyes. But he nodded. "Okay, we go at 2100. 1 hour. Get ready." Maya checked her rifle, her remaining magazines, her gear. Everything felt heavy, too heavy. But she'd carried heavier. She could do this. She had to do this. At 20:45, Frank stood up, or tried to. His leg buckled. He caught himself against the wall, but Maya saw the pain that flashed across his face. "Frank, I'm fine." He wasn't. They both knew it. Just stiff. Need to work the kinks out. He took a step, then another. Each one was visible effort. His leg wasn't just stiff. It was bad. Infected, probably. The shrapnel was still in there, and in this heat, infection set in fast. "You can't walk," Maya said. "I can walk enough." "Frank." We don't have a choice, Maya. We stay here, we die. We go, maybe we die, but maybe we don't. Those are the options. He was right. Maya knew he was right. But looking at him, at his pale face, his sweat-soaked uniform, his leg that wouldn't hold his weight, she knew the truth. Frank wasn't going to make it. But she didn't say it, because what was the point? They both already knew. At 2100 hours, they prepared to move. Frank took point despite his injury. Maya would follow, covering their rear. Standard procedure, though nothing about this was standard. Remember, Frank said, west, stay low. If we get separated, rally point is... The wind hit. Not a breeze, not even a gust. A wall of wind that slammed into the fort like a physical force. The temperature dropped 20 degrees in seconds. The air filled with sand, not the fine particles from before, but heavy, stinging grains that pelted like buckshot. "Haboob!" Frank shouted over the sudden roar. "Sandstorm! Get your—" The rest was lost in the wind. Maya pulled her shema over her face, wrapped it tight. Within seconds, visibility dropped to zero. She couldn't see Frank, couldn't see the wall 5 feet away, couldn't see anything but swirling brown darkness. The storm had come out of nowhere. Haboobs did that in the desert, formed in minutes, rolled across the landscape like a tidal wave. Beautiful from a distance, deadly up close. Maya pressed herself against the wall, trying to shield herself from the worst of the wind. Sand found every gap in her clothing, scoured any exposed skin. She squeezed her eyes shut, breathed through her shema, tasted grit anyway. "Frank!" she shouted. "Frank, where are you?" No answer. The wind swallowed her voice. She fumbled forward, hand on the wall, feeling her way. The fort's layout was simple. If she followed this wall, she'd reach the courtyard. And from there, someone grabbed her arm. Maya spun, rifle up, finger on the trigger. "It's me," Frank's voice muffled by his own shamag. "Stay close. Don't lose me." They linked arms, moved together into the courtyard. The wind tried to tear them apart. Sand lashed their faces. Maya's eyes watered, tears immediately turning to mud in the corners. A shape loomed out of the storm. One of the enemy vehicles. They left it too close to the fort. Frank pulled Maya toward it. Shelter, cover, maybe even water inside. They reached the technical, pressed against the lee side. The wind was slightly less here, blocked by the truck's bulk. Frank tried the door. Locked. He smashed the window with his rifle butt, reached inside, unlocked it. They climbed in. The interior smelled of diesel, sweat, and something sickly sweet. Blood, probably. But it was shelter. The windows were closed. The worst of the sand couldn't reach them. "Check for supplies," Frank said, coughing. "Water, food, anything." Maya searched. The glove box held nothing useful. The center console had ammunition for weapons they didn't carry. Behind the seats, her hand closed on plastic. A water bottle. She pulled it out, shook it, half full, maybe a liter. "Frank, drink it," he said immediately. "We share it." "Maya, we share it." She unscrewed the cap, took a mouthful. The water tasted stale, warm, faintly chemical. It was the most beautiful thing she'd ever tasted. She forced herself to stop after 3 swallows, handed the bottle to Frank. He drank. Not as much as he should have. Then he handed it back. "Save the rest. We don't know how long this storm will last." Outside, the haboob raged. The truck rocked in the wind. Sand hissed against the metal like a million angry snakes. Maya couldn't see anything beyond the windows, just brown darkness, swirling and churning. "How long?" she asked. "Could be an hour, could be all night." Frank shifted, trying to find a comfortable position for his leg. "But it's cover. Better than that room. And the enemy can't see any better than we can. Levels the field." Maya nodded. The water had helped. Her head felt clearer, her thoughts less foggy. Not good, she was still badly dehydrated, but better, functional. We should move once the storm clears, she said. Use it as cover to break out. Maybe. Frank was looking at his leg. Even in the dim light, Maya could see how bad it was. Swollen, discolored. The skin around the wound was tight and hot. Or maybe I stay here, provide a distraction. You go alone. No. Maya, no, we've been through this. I'm not leaving you. Even if it means you die too? Maya met his eyes. Even then. They sat in silence. The storm raged. The truck rocked. Maya's hand found the water bottle, took another small sip. Frank didn't protest this time. At some point, she wasn't sure when, Maya's eyes closed. Just for a moment, just to rest. The exhaustion was overwhelming. The dehydration, the heat, the stress, it all pressed down on her like a physical weight. She dreamed of water, of rain, of home. Maya woke to silence. The storm had passed. The truck sat still. Outside the windows, she could see stars, thousands of them, brilliant against the black sky. Frank, she said. Frank, wake up. The storm's over. No response. Frank? She turned. In the faint starlight, she could see him in the driver's seat. His head was tilted back, eyes closed, not moving. Frank! She reached over, shook his shoulder. Frank, come on! He stirred. I'm awake. I'm awake. Relief flooded through her. The storm's over. We need to move. Right. Yeah. Frank blinked, tried to focus. What time is it? Maya checked her watch. 0300. We've been out for... She did the math. 6 hours? Jesus. Frank tried to sit up, grimaced. Okay, we need to get moving. They exited the truck slowly, painfully. Maya's joints were stiff from sitting in one position too long. Frank's leg was worse. He couldn't put any weight on it now. He had to lean on Maya just to stand. The fort was barely visible in the starlight, a dark shape against darker shadows. The sandstorm had scoured everything clean. The enemy vehicles that had been parked nearby were gone, either driven away during the storm or buried. Hard to tell. West, Frank said. That way. Can you see the hills? Maya looked. She could just make out a darker line on the horizon. Hills. Maybe 5 clicks. Might as well be 500 with Frank's leg. I can make it, Frank said, reading her thoughts. He couldn't. They both knew it. But Maya didn't argue. She helped him take a step. Then another. Each one was visible agony. His breathing came harsh and ragged. Sweat poured off him despite the cool night air. They'd covered maybe 100 meters when Frank stopped. Wait, he said. Wait, I need a minute. Maya helped him sit. He slumped against a boulder, breathing hard. His face was gray, even in the darkness. Frank, we need to keep moving. If we're here when the sun comes up... I know, he closed his eyes. Just give me a minute, then we'll go. Maya sat beside him. She pulled out the water bottle, their last water. Less than half a liter left. She offered it to Frank. You drink it, he said. We share. Maya. He opened his eyes, looked at her. I'm not making it out of here. We both know that. My leg's infected. I've got a fever. Every step is harder than the last. But you still have a chance. If you drink that water, if you leave me here and go fast. I told you. I know what you told me, but I'm giving you an order now. Drink that water. Leave me your rifle and ammo. Take my radio. Try to get it working. Head west. Don't stop. Don't look back. Frank! That's an order, Sergeant. Maya stared at him, at this man who'd taught her, trained her, kept her alive. This man who was telling her to leave him to die alone in the desert. I can't, she whispered. Yes, you can. You have to. His hand gripped her shoulder. Maya, listen to me. One of us can still make it, but only if you go now. Please, don't let us both die out here. Maya felt tears on her face, or maybe it was sweat. She couldn't tell anymore. Okay, she said finally. Okay. She helped him get comfortable against the rock, left him her M4 and most of her ammunition, took his radio, the water bottle, his rifle. "Go," he said. "Don't wait, just go." Maya stood, looked down at him one last time. Then she turned west and started walking. Behind her, Frank called out, "Maya!" She stopped, looked back. "Your father would be proud." Maya nodded, couldn't speak, turned, walked. The desert stretched before her, endless, empty, deadly. But she walked. Maya walked for what felt like hours, maybe it was. Time had lost meaning. There was only the walking, the pain, the desperate need to keep moving. The hills seemed to get no closer. She'd walk and look up and they'd be the same distance. Like a treadmill. Like a nightmare where you run but stay in the same place. Her throat burned. Her lips were so cracked she could feel splits all the way through to the inside of her mouth. The water was gone. She'd finished it an hour ago. Or maybe 2 hours. Hard to tell. She fell twice. The second time, she stayed down for a full minute before forcing herself back up. Getting up was harder each time. Soon, it would be impossible. The sky began to lighten in the east. Dawn coming. The heat coming with it. Maya looked back. She couldn't see the fort anymore. Couldn't see the boulder where she'd left Frank. Couldn't see anything but empty desert. She was alone. Completely alone. She kept walking. The sun rose. The temperature climbed. Within an hour, it was over 90. Within 2, over 100. Maya's shadow shortened, disappeared beneath her feet. She started seeing things again. The mirages were back. Pools of water that vanished when she approached. Figures that moved at the edge of her vision. Her father walking beside her, telling her to keep going. She knew they weren't real. But they were company, so she didn't try to make them go away. At some point, she heard Frank's voice. "Maya, check your 3 o'clock." She looked, saw nothing. "I don't see anything, Frank." "Look harder, they're flanking." "Frank, you're not here. I left you at the rock, remember?" "I'm right here. How can I not be here? I'm talking to you." Maya stopped walking, looked around. She was alone, completely alone. "Frank?" "Yeah?" "Are you real?" Silence. Then, "Does it matter?" Maya thought about that. Did it matter? Real or hallucination, Frank's voice was helping her stay focused, helping her keep moving. "No," she said finally. "I guess it doesn't." "Then keep walking. Hills are closer than they look." She walked. At what Maya guessed was around 1,000 hours, she heard engines. She dropped flat, pressed herself against the sand. The heat was immediate and brutal. The ground temperature was probably 130 degrees, but she stayed down. The engines grew louder, multiple vehicles, coming from the east. The enemy, had to be, coming to finish what they'd started. Maya pulled Frank's SR-25 to her shoulder. She had maybe 30 rounds left. Enough to make them pay. Not enough to win, but enough. Through her scope, she saw them. 3 vehicles, technicals, 6 or 7 men, scanning the desert, hunting. They hadn't seen her yet. She was just another rock in a field of rocks. But they would, eventually. Maya settled into her shooting position, cheek weld, breathing, natural point of aim. All the things her father had taught her, all the things Frank had reinforced. The lead vehicle was 400 meters out, moving slow, scanning. Maya's crosshair settled on the driver. Her finger took up slack on the trigger. Then Frank's voice, "Don't shoot. They'll find me if I don't thin them out. They'll find you faster if you announce your position with gunfire. Stay still. Let them pass. Frank, trust me." Maya held her fire, watched through the scope as the vehicles approached. 300 meters, 250, 200. They were going to drive right over her position. 150. She could see the driver's face now. Young, maybe 20, scared, doing his job. 100. The lead vehicle turned, south, following a different search pattern. The other vehicles followed. They passed within 50 meters of Maya's position and never saw her. She watched them disappear into the heat shimmer, waited until the engine sounds faded. Then slowly, carefully, she stood. "Good call, Frank. I've been doing this a long time." Maya looked around. She still couldn't see Frank, but she could hear him, clear as day. "Frank, where are you?" "Doesn't matter. Keep moving. You're close now." "Close to what?" "The hills. Look." Maya looked west. The hills were closer. Maybe 2 clicks. She could make that. She could. She started walking again. Maya reached the hills at what her watch said was 1400 hours. She didn't believe it. Time had gone strange, stretched and compressed. Hours felt like minutes. Minutes felt like hours. The hills offered shade. Not much, but some. She collapsed in the shadow of a large boulder, gasping, her body shaking. "Water," she croaked. "Need water." "Check the wadi," Frank said. "Sometimes there's seepage, underground springs." Maya forced herself up, stumbled down a narrow cut between rocks. The temperature was slightly cooler here, and at the bottom, dampness, not water, but damp sand. She dug with her hands. A few inches down, the sand was wet. She dug deeper. A tiny pool formed, maybe 3 inches across, muddy, possibly contaminated, possibly deadly. She drank it anyway. The water tasted like minerals and dirt. It was the most beautiful thing she'd ever tasted. She drank until the tiny pool was gone, then dug more. Another pool formed. She drank that too. "Easy," Frank said. "Don't make yourself sick." Maya sat back, breathing hard. The water hit her system like electricity. Her head cleared, her vision sharpened. She was still desperately dehydrated, but she wasn't dying anymore. She looked around. "Frank, where?" He was sitting on a rock across from her. Casual, like they were just taking a break on patrol. "Hey," he said. "How did you—" Maya tried to piece it together. "I left you at the boulder. Hours ago. How did you get here?" "Does it matter?" Yes, it matters. Your leg." "I told you, doesn't matter." Maya stared at him. He looked good. Too good. His uniform was clean. His face wasn't flushed or gray. His leg didn't have a wound. "Frank," Maya said slowly, "show me your leg." "Maya, show me your fucking leg." Frank sighed, stood up. His movement was fluid, easy. No pain, no limp. "You're not real," Maya whispered. "No," Frank agreed. "I'm not." "Then where—" But she knew. She'd known for hours, maybe. She just hadn't let herself believe it. "When?" "The sandstorm. In the truck. I went to sleep and I didn't wake up." No, you talked to me. You told me to keep moving. You've been helping me." "That was you," Frank said gently. "Your survival instinct. Your training. All the things I taught you. Still working. Keeping you alive. But it wasn't me. I died in that truck, Maya." "No." "Yes." Frank's expression was sad. "I'm sorry, but you need to accept it, because you're still in danger. The enemy is still out there, and you need to keep your head clear to survive." Maya's hands were shaking. She looked down at them, looked up. Frank was gone. She was alone. She'd been alone for hours. Every conversation, every warning, every bit of guidance, it had all been her own mind, keeping her alive, keeping her moving. Frank was dead. Maya pulled her knees to her chest and let herself cry. Not for long. She couldn't afford the moisture loss, but she cried. Then she wiped her face, drank more water, and started planning her next move. Because Frank, real or imagined, had been right about one thing. She had to survive. For both of them. Maya spent the rest of the afternoon in the wadi, rationing the seepage water, letting her body recover what it could. The tiny underground spring produced maybe a liter every 2 hours. Not enough to fully rehydrate, but enough to keep her alive, enough to keep her dangerous. By 1800 hours, she'd made a decision. She wasn't running anymore. Running meant dying slowly in the desert. Better to die on her terms. Better to take some of them with her. She climbed out of the wadi as the sun began to set. The temperature dropped from unbearable to merely brutal. She felt clearer now. The water had helped. Her hallucinations had stopped. Or maybe she'd just gotten better at recognizing them. Frank's voice was gone. She was truly alone now. Maya made her way back toward the fort. 3 clicks over broken ground. She moved slowly, conserving energy, stopping frequently to scan for enemy positions. The desert was empty. The patrol vehicles hadn't returned. Maybe they'd given up. Maybe they thought she was already dead. They were wrong. The fort appeared in the twilight, a black silhouette against the darkening sky. Maya circled it wide, approaching from the south. No vehicles, no guards visible. Either they'd pulled out completely or they were waiting inside. She settled into a position 200 meters out, behind a low ridge of rocks. Through her scope, she glassed the fort methodically. The courtyard was empty. The tower, what remained of it, was rubble. The room where they'd made their stand showed blast damage, the door hanging off its hinges. And near the west wall, barely visible in the fading light, a shape that didn't belong. Maya adjusted her scope's focus. The shape resolved into a body. Sitting upright against a boulder, rifle across its lap. Frank. She'd left him there. 36 hours ago? Less? Time had blurred, but she'd left him, and he'd died. And now his body sat there like a sentinel, like he was still on watch. Maya felt something crack inside her chest. Not grief, she'd moved past that. Something colder, something that crystallized into pure, focused rage. They'd killed Frank. They'd hunted her like an animal. They'd tried to let the desert do their work for them. Now it was her turn. Maya waited until full dark. The moon hadn't risen yet. The desert was black except for the stars. Perfect conditions for what she had planned. She approached the fort from the west, moving slow, testing each step before committing her weight. No night vision. She'd lost her PVS-14 somewhere during the haboob. But she didn't need it. She'd learned to read darkness the way some people read books. Frank's body was where she'd left it. Maya knelt beside it, tried not to look at his face. His skin was already leathery from the sun, his eyes sunken. The desert mummified bodies fast. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm sorry I left you." No response. Of course not. Frank was gone. The voice in her head had been her own survival instinct, nothing more. But that didn't mean she couldn't use him one more time. Maya checked Frank's M4, still loaded. She positioned him more upright, wedged rocks behind his back to keep him stable, adjusted his rifle so it pointed toward the courtyard entrance. From a distance, in low light, he'd look alive, alert, dangerous, a decoy, a ghost to draw fire. Then she moved to her own position, 30 meters away, elevated with clear sightlines to the courtyard and the approach road. She set up the SR-25, checked her remaining ammunition. 4 magazines, maybe 120 rounds. Enough. She also had something she'd found in the technical during the sandstorm, a fragmentation grenade. Chinese-made, but functional. She set it within reach. Now she waited. Maya had learned patience through years of training. Sniper work was 90% waiting, 10% shooting. You learn to become part of the landscape, to breathe slowly, to let time pass without anxiety or boredom. She waited. At 0200 hours, she heard engines. They came from the north. 2 vehicles this time. Technicals. Moving without lights, navigating by moonlight. The moon had risen an hour earlier, 3/4 full, bright enough to cast shadows. Maya watched through her scope as they approached the fort. The vehicles stopped 50 meters out. Men dismounted, she counted 8. They spread out in a tactical formation, moving toward the fort with weapons ready. Professional, disciplined. The same crew that had hunted her, or what remained of them. They reached the courtyard entrance, stopped. One man raised his hand, the leader probably. He was scanning the area, looking for threats. His eyes settled on Frank's body. Maya watched as the leader gestured. Two men broke off, approached Frank carefully, weapons up, testing. Was the American alive? Dead? Dangerous? They got within 20 feet. The leader was hanging back, using his men as probes. Smart. One of the men called out something in Arabic. No response from Frank, obviously. The man stepped closer. 10 feet. 5. He reached out to nudge Frank's shoulder. Maya fired. The suppressed crack of the SR-25 was swallowed by the desert. The man dropped. His partner spun, trying to locate the shooter. Maya fired again. He went down. Chaos erupted. The remaining men scattered, some diving for cover, others laying down suppressing fire. But they didn't know where she was. They were shooting at Frank's position, exactly as she'd planned. Bullets tore into Frank's body. His corpse jerked and danced with the impacts. It was grotesque, necessary. Maya pushed down the revulsion and kept working. She fired. A man behind a rock. He fell. Fired again. A man sprinting for the vehicle. He stumbled, went down. 4 down. 4 left plus the leader. The return fire intensified. They'd figured out her general area now. Rounds cracked overhead, impacted the rocks around her. Close. Too close. Maya displaced. She'd chosen this position specifically because it had multiple fallback points. She low-crawled 10 meters left, settled into a new spot. The enemy fire was still hitting her old position. She acquired a new target. Fired. 5 down. The leader shouted orders. The remaining men began to withdraw, laying down covering fire. Disciplined retreat. They knew they were being picked apart, knew they needed to break contact. Maya let them go. 3 men plus the leader piled into one vehicle. The engine roared. They spun out, headed north, leaving their dead behind. Maya watched them disappear into the darkness. Then she waited. 15 minutes, 30, making sure they weren't coming back. Silence settled over the fort. Just the wind, just the stars. Maya stood, her joints protesting. She approached the courtyard carefully, rifle up, checking corners. The dead men lay where they'd fallen. She didn't search them, didn't want to. They were just bodies now, just meat. Frank's body was a ruin. The enemy fire had torn into him, leaving barely anything recognizable. Maya felt bile rise in her throat, pushed it down. "I'm sorry," she said again, "but it worked. You kept me alive one more time." The wind was her only answer. Maya knew they'd come back. Not tonight. They'd lick their wounds, regroup, bring more men. But they'd come. This was personal now. She'd killed too many of them, humiliated them. They'd want revenge. Good. Let them come. She'd be ready. She spent the pre-dawn hours preparing. She took weapons and ammunition from the dead. 2 more AKs, several magazines, another grenade. She set up multiple firing positions around the fort, caching ammunition at each one. If she had to move fast, she wouldn't run dry. She also found water. One of the dead men had a camelback, still half full. She drank deeply, felt strength return to her limbs. The dehydration fog lifted further. Her mind sharpened. By 0600, she was as ready as she'd ever be. The sun rose. The temperature climbed. Maya found shade and waited. They came at noon. Not 2 vehicles this time, 6. And not 8 men, closer to 30. They'd brought everyone they had. This was their final push. Maya watched them deploy. They were being careful now, cautious. She'd taught them to fear her. They surrounded the fort, cut off all escape routes, set up overlapping fields of fire. Then they waited. Smart. They weren't rushing in. They were going to starve her out, or try to. But Maya had other plans. She'd rigged the entry points with her grenades. Chinese frags with tripwires made from paracord. Simple, crude, but effective. Anyone pushing through those doors was going to have a bad day. She settled into her primary position, the tower's remains, elevated with cover. Not perfect, but good enough. She had 3 rifles now, each loaded and ready. When one ran dry, she'd switch to the next. Keep firing, keep moving. The enemy commander, she could see him now, standing by his vehicle, directing his men, was smart. He wasn't exposing his people unnecessarily. He was using patience, trying to draw her out. So Maya showed him what he wanted to see. She fired a single shot, deliberately high, missing by design, but loud, unmistakable, announcing her position. The enemy response was immediate and overwhelming. Every man opened fire on her position. The air filled with the crack of AK fire, the deeper boom of PKM machine guns. Bullets shredded the air around her, pulverized stone, filled the air with dust and fragments. Maya was already moving. She'd fired from one position, but she was rolling to another. The enemy fire was devastating, but it was hitting where she'd been, not where she was. She popped up 20 feet away, fired 3 quick shots into the massive men below. 2 dropped. She was gone before they could adjust fire. This was her element. This was what she'd trained for. Not standing toe-to-toe with superior numbers, but moving like a ghost, striking from unexpected angles, disappearing before they could respond. She moved to her next position, fired, displaced. The enemy was shooting at shadows, wasting ammunition, growing frustrated. But there were so many of them, and only one of her. The battle lasted 2 hours. It felt like days. Maya moved constantly, never staying in one position for more than 2 shots. She used every trick she'd ever learned, firing from low ports, using mirrors to look around corners, creating noise in one location while shooting from another. She killed 6 more, maybe 7, lost count. Her world had narrowed to a simple cycle. Acquire target, shoot, move, reload, repeat. But they were closing in, methodically, carefully. The net was tightening. At 1400 hours, one of her tripwires triggered. The explosion was followed by screaming. Men down, but more pushed through. They were in the fort now, in the courtyard, coming for her. Maya was in the western room, her original defensive position. She'd come full circle. The barricade was still there, shredded by previous fire, but still providing some cover. Men appeared at the door. She dropped them. More came. She dropped them too. But for every one that fell, 2 more pushed forward. Her M4 ran dry. She dropped it, grabbed the SR-25, fired until it clicked empty. Dropped it, grabbed an AK she'd cached earlier. The selector was on full auto. She held the trigger down, swept the doorway. Bodies fell. The AK clicked empty. She dropped it, pulled her Beretta M9. 15 rounds. Close range. She could see their faces now. Young men, scared, angry, determined. She fired until the slide locked back. Empty. Maya looked around for another weapon. Nothing. She'd expended everything. A man appeared in the doorway, rifle up, pointed at her chest. This was it. This was how it ended. Not from thirst, not from heat, but from a bullet, fast and clean. She met his eyes, refused to look away. His finger tightened on the trigger. Then his head exploded. The sound hit a half-second later. Not a rifle crack, something heavier. A .50 caliber, mounted on something big. Maya looked up through the destroyed roof. A Black Hawk. 2 of them, coming in fast and low. Door gunners on the M240s engaging targets below. The heavy thump-thump-thump of the rotors was the most beautiful sound Maya had ever heard. The enemy scattered. Vehicles started up, tried to flee. The Black Hawks pursued, door gunners raking them with fire. One technical exploded, ammunition cooking off in a cascade of secondary blasts. Maya slumped against the wall, her body shaking. It was over. She'd survived. Against all odds, against all logic, she'd survived. A rope dropped through the roof opening. Two operators fast roped down, Delta by the look of their gear. They swept the room with weapons up, found Maya, recognized her as friendly. "We got you," one shouted over the rotor noise. "Can you move?" Maya tried to stand. Her legs didn't want to hold her. The operators caught her before she fell. "I got her," one said into his radio. "American, single, alive, needs medical ASAP." They rigged her into a harness, signaled to the bird. The hoist engaged. Maya felt herself lifted, pulled up through the shattered roof, into the sky. The Black Hawk's crew chief grabbed her, pulled her into the cabin. A medic was already moving, checking her vitals, starting an IV. "You're okay," the medic said. "You're okay, we got you." Maya looked down through the open door. The fort was shrinking below her. The bodies, the vehicles, the desert that had tried to kill her. And somewhere down there, in the growing distance, Frank's body. "Wait," she croaked. Her voice was barely audible over the engines. There's another American. Master Sergeant Frank Miller. He's down there. We have to." "Ma'am, we're doing a sweep now," the crew chief said. "If he's there, we'll find him." "He's dead," Maya said. The words hurt. "He died 2 days ago. But we can't leave him." The crew chief spoke into his radio. Maya couldn't hear the conversation, but she saw him nod. "They'll get him," he said to Maya. "We don't leave anyone behind." Maya nodded, closed her eyes, let the medic work. She was safe. She was going home. But part of her, the part that had walked through hell, would always be back in that desert. The flight to the forward operating base took 20 minutes. Maya drifted in and out of consciousness. The IV helped. The medic said things she didn't understand, medical terms, vital signs, concerns about organ damage from severe dehydration. She didn't care. She was alive. That was all that mattered. They landed at the FOB with a bump. The crew chief and medic transferred her to a stretcher, carried her to the aid station. Doctors swarmed. More IVs. Blood draws. Questions she couldn't answer because her mouth was too dry, her brain too foggy. Someone gave her water. She drank it slowly, carefully, remembered Frank's lessons even now. Small sips. Don't overwhelm your system. Frank. "Did they find him?" she asked. Her voice was a rasp. "Master Sergeant Miller, did they find his body?" A doctor leaned in. "The recovery team is still on site. They'll bring him back, I promise." Maya nodded, closed her eyes, let the medication pull her under. She dreamed of water, of rain, of Frank telling her she'd done well. Maya woke in a hospital bed, not the field hospital, a real hospital. White walls, quiet, air conditioning that made her skin prickle with goosebumps. A nurse noticed she was awake. "Welcome back, Sergeant. How are you feeling?" Maya tried to speak. Her throat was still raw. The nurse offered water through a straw. Maya sipped gratefully. "Where am I?" she managed. "Landstuhl, Germany. You've been here for 3 days." 3 days. Maya tried to process that. She'd lost time. Again. "Your body was in pretty rough shape," the nurse continued. "Severe dehydration, stage 3. Acute kidney injury, heat stroke, infections in multiple lacerations. You're lucky to be alive." "Frank," Maya said. "Master Sergeant Miller, did they?" "They recovered his remains," the nurse said gently. "He's being transported home, full military honors." Maya felt tears on her face. She didn't try to stop them. The nurse squeezed her hand, said nothing, just stayed there while Maya cried. Later, hours or days she couldn't tell, an officer came, a colonel she didn't recognize. He pulled up a chair, sat down like he had all the time in the world. "Sergeant Sterling," he said, "I'm Colonel Brennan. I've been reviewing your after-action reports. What you and Master Sergeant Miller accomplished out there was remarkable." Maya said nothing. The observation post you were running was critical to a larger operation, Brennan continued. The intelligence you gathered helped us roll up a significant enemy network. 27 high-value targets captured or eliminated, weapons caches discovered, supply lines disrupted. Frank did most of it, Maya said. I just survived. You did more than survive. You continued the mission after his death, alone, against overwhelming odds. Brennan paused. Master Sergeant Miller's family will receive his Purple Heart and Bronze Star posthumously. You're being recommended for the Silver Star. Maya shook her head. I don't want a medal. I want Frank back. I know, Brennan stood, but he'd want you to accept it, to honor what you both did out there. He left. Maya stared at the ceiling, feeling empty. 2 weeks later, Maya was cleared to fly home. Her body had recovered, mostly. The kidney damage was reversible. The infections were clearing. The lacerations were healing. Her weight was back to normal. But the dreams hadn't stopped. Every night she was back in the desert. Sometimes she was in the fort, watching Frank die. Sometimes she was wandering alone, dying of thirst. Sometimes she heard Frank's voice, turned to answer, and found herself talking to empty air. The doctor said it was normal. PTSD, survivor's guilt. Psychological trauma from extreme physical stress. They gave her medications, referred her to counseling, said it would get better with time. Maya wasn't sure she believed them. The flight home was on a C-17, cargo plane configured for medical transport. Maya sat in a seat near the front, watching the other wounded soldiers, missing limbs, burn scars, 1,000-yard stares. She was one of them now, one of the broken ones. They landed at Dover Air Force Base. From there, Maya was transported to Walter Reed for further evaluation. More doctors, more questions, more medals she didn't want. Her mother was waiting when she was finally released. Maya had called ahead, warned her, told her not to make a fuss. But mothers never listen. "Oh, baby," her mother said, pulling her into a hug. "Oh, my baby girl." Maya let herself be held, let herself feel safe, just for a moment. "I'm okay, Mom," she lied. "I'm fine." They drove to her mother's house in Virginia, the same house Maya had grown up in. Everything was exactly as she remembered. The worn couch, the family photos on the wall, the kitchen that always smelled like coffee. But Maya felt like a stranger, like she was looking at someone else's life. Her mother made dinner. Maya picked at it, couldn't eat, too used to rationing, too used to hunger. That night, Maya lay in her childhood bed, staring at the ceiling. The house was too quiet, too still. She missed the desert wind, the starlight, even the constant threat of death. At least that had been real. Simple. She got up, went to the window, looked out at the suburban street. A neighbor was watering his lawn, wasting water, gallons of it just running down the sidewalk into the storm drain. Maya felt anger spike. Then it faded. This was the world she'd fought for. This comfortable, safe, wasteful world where people could water their lawns and never think about thirst. She'd kept that world safe. Frank had died to keep it safe. That had to mean something, didn't it? 6 months later, Maya stood in front of a gravestone in Arlington National Cemetery. The inscription was simple. Master Sergeant Franklin J. Miller, U.S. Army, 1967 to 2025. Purple Heart, Bronze Star, devoted soldier, mentor, friend. Maya set down a bottle of water. Not fancy, just a regular plastic bottle from the gas station. But it felt right. Frank would have appreciated the symbolism. "Hey," she said. "Sorry it took me so long to visit. I've been dealing with stuff." The gravestone didn't answer. Of course not. Frank was gone. Except sometimes, in quiet moments, Maya still heard his voice. Not hallucinations. She was on medication now. Her brain was properly hydrated. But memories, training, all the lessons he'd taught her, still echoing. Breathe, aim, fire, conserve your water. Stay sharp. Your father would be proud. I got out, Maya continued. Medical discharge, PTSD. Turns out talking to ghosts in the desert is frowned upon by the army. She laughed, but it came out bitter. I'm doing okay, mostly. Therapy helps. The medications help. I'm alive. That's something. A breeze rustled the leaves. Somewhere nearby, a bird sang. I think about you every day, Maya said. I think about what you did, how you gave me your water, how you told me to leave you, how you saved my life even after you were gone. She paused, swallowed hard. I'm going back to school, studying to be a medic, emergency medicine. I figure if I can survive 5 days in the desert with no water, I can handle anything. And maybe I can help other people survive too. Make your sacrifice mean something. The wind picked up. Maya pulled her jacket tighter. I should go, she said, but I'll come back. I promise. You're not forgotten, Frank. You'll never be forgotten. She stood there for another minute. Then she turned and walked away, down the path between the rows of white stones. Behind her, the bottle of water sat at the base of Frank's grave. The afternoon sun caught the plastic, made it glow like a small flame. A memorial, a symbol, a promise. In the desert, water was life. And life, Maya had learned, was worth fighting for, no matter the cost.